Welcome to Trial Site News Weekly Roundup. Today we cover the story titled Real-World Evidence, iMask Plus Protocol. Ivermectin is key for prophylaxis and early treatment of COVID-19. Then, a small tribe in the Pacific Northwest dropped AZD1222 and seek participation in Novavax COVID-19 vaccine clinical trial. From Trial Site News, I'm Adrian, and the Weekly Roundup starts now. Real-world evidence means medical evidence obtained from real-world data. That is, observational data, secured from outside the context of clinical trials and rather produced during routine clinical practice. The 21st Century Cures Act, enacted as law back in 2016, heavily supported by the pharmaceutical industry, mandated the use of real-world evidence. The intention of the act largely was to expedite the approval process, including easing the requirements placed on clinical trial sponsors seeking U.S. Food and Drug Administration approval on new products or new indications on existing drugs. For example, the new act supported a company to provide data summaries and real-world evidence, such as observational studies, insurance claims data, patient input, at least in certain situations. With its passing, the FDA embraced RWE, noting that RWE and RWD are playing an increasing role in healthcare decisions. Now, with the onset of the COVID-19 pandemic, a collaboration in Australia led by Monash University identified in a lab one that has a well-established safety record, ivermectin, is actually an inhibitor of the causative virus SARS-CoV-2. Now, they reported that in vitro there was a 5,000-fold reduction in viral RNDA at 48 hours. Now, the rest is history, as we here at Trial Site News have chronicled now the many dozens of case series, observational studies, a couple completed studies with randomized components, and in the aggregate off-label use cases in many countries around the world. Now, a couple ivermectin studies have surfaced in reputable peer-reviewed medical journals. So why put so much attention into the topic? Well, the obvious answer is there is a deadly pandemic that isn't slowing down. In addition to the critical research supported by the pharmaceutical industry and the National Institutes of Health, or the NIH, physicians seek to save lives in the present moment. Given ivermectin was already FDA approved, and in fact does have a well-known safety profile, could it in fact fall under the Act for purposes of accelerating FDA approval as part of some combined therapy? Now, as that question may soon be pondered, the pandemic worsened. Enter groups of physicians such as the Frontline COVID-19 Critical Care Alliance. Now, this group, the FLCC, is best known for its Math Plus COVID-19 treatment protocol. Now, back in October, we here at Trial Site News reported that this protocol included an ivermectin option for prevention and early treatment of COVID-19. And then, at the end of October, the group formalized a new protocol for both prevention and early treatment of COVID-19, this time dubbed iMask Plus. The I stands for ivermectin, which is now the key ingredient in the protocol rather than an option. The FLCCC was formed as a working group of doctors recognizing the emergency conditions of the early pandemic in reaction to many reports of COVID-19 patients with inexplicable need for ventilation and the high death rate of the prevailing supportive care-only recommendations from major healthcare organizations. Now, this group of highly published leaders in critical care, led by Dr. Paul Merrick, had expertise in severe infections, including bacterial sepsis. Along with high patient survival numbers of these following the FLCC's protocols, equally concerned and motivated colleagues from other specialties reached out to join the effort. The Math Plus Hospital Treatment Protocol was formulated back in March, and it has been used successfully since then for the severely ill. Now, for more on the background of the FLCCC Alliance, you can check out the story on Trial Site News in the description below. Now, as I noted, iMask Plus is a new protocol for both prophylaxis and early outpatient treatment of COVID-19 patients. Now, it is centered around the use of ivermectin, which of course is the FDA-approved well-known antiparasitic drug with the discovered antiviral and anti-inflammatory properties and a rapidly growing published medical evidence base demonstrating its unique and highly potent ability to inhibit SARS-CoV-2 replication. iMask Plus and Math Plus are complementary in that the former excludes hospitalized patients while the later focuses on them. Now, according to the FLCCC, all of their recommended medicines are FDA approved, inexpensive, readily available, and have been used for decades with well-established safety profiles. And according to Dr. Merrick, the iMask protocol will revolutionize the treatment of COVID-19. Now, the FLCCC notes that recent studies have been negative for many treatments. These included remdesivir, hydroxychloroquine, lopinavir, interferon, plasma, and monoclonal antibody therapy. Now, at present, the only thing officially proven to work is corticosteroids for moderate to severe illness and remdesivir. Now, of course, remdesivir has a mixed record. The FDA and EMA approved despite the results of the Solidarity trial. The new protocol is based on the accumulation of published and unpublished trials showing that the drug ivermectin, an antiparasitic drug with increasingly well-known antiviral and anti-inflammatory properties, has demonstrated profound activity against COVID-19. Now, per the FLCCC, the available evidence shows that ivermectin inhibits SARS-CoV-2 replication, prevents transmission within households, hastens recovery and stops deterioration in mild to moderate cases, hastens recovery, avoidance of ICU, and leads to striking reductions in case fatality rates in regions with population-wide distribution and use. Perhaps most importantly, as little as 1 dose a week can lead to population-wide protection and reduce transmission in a manner that is easier to achieve, more effective, and less expensive than the still elusive and widely suspect vaccine. Now, one study the FLCCC believes deserves special attention is by Dr. Juan Chamey. Now, his study gives us an analysis of large amounts of real-world epidemiologic data in support of ivermectin as an effective population-wide intervention in Peru. Now, by comparing and contrasting 8 regions, some of which use population-wide prophylactic ivermectin, Dr. Chamey was able to reach strong confidence in the drug. Now, as I noted earlier, the new protocol's name is I for ivermectin, and the mask simply means wearing a mask, and the plus is different amounts of vitamin D3, vitamin C, quercetin, melatonin, zinc, and aspirin. Now, this was founded by highly published critical care specialists employed at major academic medical centers with over 1,000 medical publications. The FLCCC physicians came together to help patients during the COVID-19 pandemic. Now, the question here, then, is why can't the FLCCC and the NIH get together and figure out how to leverage real-world evidence and research in agile and creative ways to produce more evidence while continuing to save lives? To contact the FLCCC, head on over to covid19criticalcare.com. So, what does a niche vaccine-focused biotech from Gaithersburg, toiling in relative obscurity for years, and a small Native American nation in the far Pacific Northwest have in common? COVID-19. A piece in Science recently suggested that the once small American vaccine development company, Novavax, just a year ago toiling in obscurity, yet today slated to receive up to $2 billion from the U.S. government and others to develop and manufacture the moth cell-based COVID-19 vaccine, may actually be on to one of the most superior vaccine candidates. Why? Well, according to author Meredith Wadman, suggests that their investigational vaccine candidate thus far outperforms most others when factoring in key measures on monkey and early-stage human studies. So how does the Native American group factor into this picture? Well, they're situated in the far Pacific Northwest at the Canadian border, represented by the Lumi Public Health Department, recently submitted an application to participate in the Novavax COVID-19 vaccine trial. Now, some relevant background here is important, as recently Native News Online shared that citing a no-no in the world of trial site organizational 101s sponsor communication problems. Apparently, at least from the Lumi Public Health's point of view, AstraZeneca representatives appeared to have underperformed in their communicative duties during the recent U.S. Food and Drug Administration triggered safety delay. Transparency and consistent communication represents a foundational starting point for good sponsor-to-trial site relationships. But we here at Trial Site News will remind that this represents one point of view and not necessarily the reality based on the totality of facts. However, another explanation for the pullout was concern about safety. Although a neurological-based safety incident did occur in the UK, there and in other locations deemed the risks sufficiently low and thus soon thereafter continued the trial. Now, on the other hand, the US FDA put a pause on the whole thing in America, and based on statements from the tribe's medical doctor that the recent safety incidents may have been enough to sufficiently spook the tribal leadership. Dakota Lane, the medical director, told the Indigenous-focused news outlet that Native peoples are at a higher risk of severe symptoms or death from the coronavirus. The AstraZeneca trial was not a good fit, but we continue to believe it's important for our people to have the opportunity to volunteer for a trial, as we're at a much higher risk than other populations. Now, Native News Online reported that the tribe underwent a 3-part site qualification process for this particular clinical trial, including Institutional Review Board, review of Indian College, review by the Lumi Health and Family Services Commission, and finally approved by the Lumi Indian Business Council, or the LIBC. And then there was a 4th step, seemingly more of a symbolic recognition, which was a decision by the 6-member Lumi Tribal Health Commission. There, they do respond to any public concerns, but more than likely at that stage, the tribe is ready to participate. And that, my friends, brings this episode to a close. As always, it's great to be here, and it's great to have you with us, and we'll see you all next time.